The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Hello everybody, I want to welcome you to this special edition of our Active Christian Media Show right here online. Obviously. We are on blogtalkradio.com/AC Media, and our show is also heard over on Podomatic at staceyharp.podomatic.com. But the best place to go, obviously, is activechristianmedia.com. You can go there. You can learn more about what we do as a company, and we just thank you for doing that in advance. You know what, everybody? Hey, at the time of this recording, it is May 3rd, all right? I mean, we're already into May. The last couple of days have been extremely interesting, as most of you probably know. You know, like, for example, not too long ago, we had this long-form birth certificate released by the White House. Barack Hussein Obama decided after a couple of years of speculation and controversy that because Donald Trump wanted it, he would go ahead and release it. So Donald Trump in all his glory was able to do what a whole bunch of lawyers couldn't do, some judges couldn't do, and all that. Wow, don't you guys think that's kind of suspicious? I do, you know, and I'm not suspicious by nature, but I have to tell you, you know what, as a Christian, we have to pray for discernment and wisdom, and that's kind of what I'm doing with today's show here. I want you to know that we're going to talk about that incident, but then the other thing that happened recently was all of a sudden Osama bin Laden shows up dead. All right, well, you know, all you have to do is get online and you can find that he's been allegedly killed at least 9 times. So maybe he's a cat and we just didn't know it, right? No, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of fishy things going on, and it's happening really fast. And so, you know, my heart here is I don't want you guys to be all like surprised or like get sucked into what the media is telling us. I think what we should do is kind of step back and start asking questions. You know, as much flack as Glenn Beck gets, there is some truth in the fact that we should question with boldness, all right? So that's kind of what we're doing here today. As I told you previously, my guest today is actually a private investigator. Her name is Susan Daniels. She has some information regarding the Social Security number that Barack Hussein Obama has been using or did use in the past. And I actually was referred to Susan by Coach Dave Daubenmire, who's a very reliable man of God and very passionate about the truth, not willing to, you know, compromise his convictions on anything. And so based on what Dave sent me, I called Susan, we talked, she sent me info, and now she's here to talk about it. So Susan, I want to welcome you to the Active Christian Media Show, and thank you for taking the time to actually want to spread the news about what you uncovered.
Oh, well, I appreciate your having me on, and I welcome the opportunity to tell people what I found.
Well, I'm glad that you have the courage to do so. I mean, I know that in the past, many things happen in our government, and certain people end up dead because they end up sharing things. Vince Foster comes to mind. I don't know what happened, but anyway, give people a little bit about your background, because you're a private investigator, which that's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah, I have been licensed in Ohio for 16 years now as a private investigator. My educational background is I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in English from Cleveland State University, and I have been certified as a paralegal for over 30 years. So I have the credentials to do what I do and to find what I found.
Okay, so what exactly, I mean, obviously people decide to become a private eye for a reason. Why did you want to become a private eye?
You know what? I didn't.
Okay.
I ended up with this job by accident. And everybody is stunned to hear that. I never had any intention of being a private investigator, but I was looking for work. And somebody called me that had a private investigation company that knew me. They knew that I worked part-time for a newspaper, and asked if I could come and do some research for them. And it was supposed to be just a couple of odd jobs, and that was it. And then I ended up getting hired full time. And in Ohio, before you can become a private investigator, you have to work for 4,000 hours under somebody else's license. So that's what I ended up doing, and then I got my own license.
Wow.
I went and took the state test, and I mean, you know, I mean, God really does lead you where you're supposed to go.
4,000 hours, man, that's worse than here in the
2 years full time.
Yeah, I mean, I worked as a marriage and family therapist, and my internship was 3,000 hours, and I can tell you that's a lot of work, as you know. But 4,000 hours, that's amazing. Okay, so basically, they really put you through the ringer before you could actually.
And then you have to go down to the state and you know, the Capitol, and take a 4-hour written test.
Yeah, that's the same way as it is for a therapist, except you got to take 2 of those tests. So.
One was enough.
That's right. Well, okay, so basically, in order to be a private eye, you can't be an idiot then.
Well, I don't know. There are people that would disagree with that, because I know a few that are real idiots. But no, theoretically, you should know what you're doing, but that's not always the case.
Okay. Well, then, how did you get involved? I mean, what motivated you to go ahead and discover stuff about our alleged president?
Well, I have, as you can imagine, I've accumulated a number of clients over the years, and in fact, I work mostly for law firms. But one of my clients and I were discussing what a mess this country had turned into immediately after his inauguration. And he suggested that I start looking into his background. And so, you know, to humor him, I said, yeah, okay, sure. And I thought, there's not going to be a thing available on him. He's the president. So I started looking. As an investigator, I have access to databases that you would not be able to access because I am licensed. And, you know, because I'm licensed, we're held to you know, very strict rules of how we access information and what we do with it. But one of the things that, you know, when I first became an investigator, one of the laws under the state investigators was that if we discovered a felony, we were required to report it. Well, so this friend of mine says, well, you know, look and see what you can find. I go to look in the databases, as I suspected, there was nothing. Well, then I went to some of the smaller, more obscure databases and put in, you know, Barack Obama, Chicago, Illinois, and up pops his Social Security number. And I took one look at it, and I knew it was a fraud. Because along with it, it gives not only the number, but the year it was issued and the state where it was issued. And it said it was issued between the years of 77 and 79 in Connecticut. And I knew that there was no way, because this was, and as it turns out, it would have been March or April of 1977 if he had actually gotten this number. At that time, he was 15 years old and in high school in Hawaii. You get your Social Security number by where you live when you apply for it. So I instantly knew that it was fraudulent.
Okay.
So I took the number and then started running other databases and gathering information that way.
Now, and it's interesting because everybody, Susan has actually sent me a PDF of it, and I actually have it here in my hand. And let me just tell you, it does say here, year issued 1977 to 79, state issued Connecticut, and we've never heard that he lived there before. And then it says names associated with Social Security: Obama Barack, Obama Barack Hussein. And then this is the part that really blew me away. It says dates of birth associated with Social Security number 1890. And it says 08, 04, 1961, and then it says 04, 08, 1961, which I guess his birthday is August 4th.
Yes. The two dates below the 1890, one's the foreign way of writing the birth date, and one's the way we do it.
Okay, so let me ask you this. When did Social Security numbers actually become part of our thing? I mean, were Social Security numbers around in 1890?
No. Social Security started in 1936.
Okay.
And it was voluntary. It was not mandatory like it is now. So a lot of people never had them. Like, for instance, my grandparents never had Social Security numbers. My theory, the one that seems most plausible to me is that here we had a person that would have been born. And let me add, before I even say another thing, I have never, in the thousands of Social Security numbers I've looked at in the last 18 years, 16 years licensed on my own and the 2 years before, have never seen another date attached to one, like the 1890 is. Now, my theory is that somebody in Connecticut who was born in 1890, and I have no idea, male, female, there's no way to track that number down. I tried for a year and a half to see if I could find the original holder of that number, but could not. I think what happened is at the age of 87 years old, which would have been 1977, that they may have gotten sick, may not have had money and needed medical care, but to get medical care, you definitely have to have a Social Security number. And I'm thinking that that's how that number was issued to somebody that was born in 1890. And subsequently, he just took that number over.
Very interesting. And why would he do that? That would be...
Because he's obviously trying to hide something. Why would anybody use a bogus Social Security number if they weren't trying to hide something in their past? I think he had one before from Hawaii when he was younger.
That's interesting. Okay, so just to play the devil's advocate, not that he needs any, but it would if somebody's thinking, all right, Susan, private eye, what if something happened with his identity and his Social Security number was messed up and they needed to give him a new one?
I would have thought he would have put that in his book, wouldn't he have?
Okay, and plus, wouldn't that have come from a different state? Because he has never lived in Connecticut, right?
No, I don't. In fact, I don't think he ever even visited there before he was president or running for president. No, there is no. I mean, people come up with the craziest reasons to try and excuse his behavior. You know, somebody said, "Oh well, maybe he went to visit his father's school and got his number when he was there as a youngster." Well, his father went to school in Massachusetts, not Connecticut. You know, people say, "Oh well, he got it at a post office box there." Well, they don't issue Social Security numbers to post office boxes. For him to legitimately have that number, he would have had to fill out this handwritten form, which is the way they did it in 77. It's called an SS5. It's a card. It's probably about 4 by 8 inches, and it asks for all your information, including your address. So there would have to be, at Social Security Administration, a handwritten card by him with a Connecticut address for him to have a Connecticut Social Security number.
Okay, well that makes sense. Okay, so then some of the other stuff you gave me has to do, excuse me everybody, I got a cough here, has to do with his selective service registration verification letter.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what is that, first of all. What is the selective service registration?
Well, somebody sent that to me, and that is one of the, I think that's the only document that I sent you that I didn't find on my own. And what that is, when he was supposed to have signed up for selective service, when he was when he turned 18. Well, he turned 18 in the year 1979. From the year 75 to 80, it was not mandatory that you sign up for selective service, but it became mandatory again in 1980. So anybody who was born in 1961, like he was, had 4 months after their birthday to sign up for selective service. Well, you see the letter, and it says, dear registrant, and it talks about, how they've signed up, and at the bottom it's got the wallet cards they could cut and carry around in their wallet to prove that they had done it. And you see across the top it's got a selective service number, it's got the Connecticut Social Security number and his date of birth. Well, what's really interesting is now this letter would have gone to him when he signed up in 1980. But if you look on the form number, it says in parentheses in very small type, it says May-07. So that means that, so it's like we're supposed to think that a letter that he got in 1980 is on a May 07 form. I don't think he ever signed up for selective service because I think I also sent you the actual document that he signed supposedly in July 29th of 1980.
Yes.
If you were foreign, you did not have to sign up for selective service. And I don't believe he ever did until May of 2007 when they started making documents to try and prove that he was who they're trying to tell us he is.
Now, what's interesting, too, about this particular document, the Selective Service System registration form, and what you did was you highlighted those things had to be stamped, and on here it shows July 29th, and it has the number 80 underneath it. There's no 19 in front of it. But
every other one is.
Yeah, exactly. All the other ones that you showed, that you gave other samples, actually show 1980, and you've highlighted that. And everybody, what we're going to do, just so you know, is we're going to offer this to you. We're gonna let you see this stuff. I think it's already going to be published in a book or something. But we're gonna show you this stuff, and you can tell us if, well, you can determine if you think it's real or not. I think it's kind of suspicious myself.
Especially because the other one that I have large, that I have not shrunk down, was within a day or two of his, and underneath the date, it says 1980, centered perfectly. And what they did with his is they took a stamp that was 2008, and they cut off the 2 and the 0, and then turned the number upside down to make it look like 80.
Very interesting. So, yeah, and so that would actually match the Social Security last part of the number.
And then we have and this is directly from a government site where the selective service verification that I included.
Right.
That comes from a government site. I went in several weeks ago, put in his last name, his date of birth, his Social Security number, and the verification comes up with the last 4 letters of the Connecticut Social Security number.
Right.
Now that site, I went in there the other day again to try and do it again, and you can't access it anymore.
Well, that's fishy, isn't it?
Well, it's very suspicious.
And we're all about suspicion here on the Active Christian.
It's just like the birth certificate. They put it up in the morning on the White House website, and as soon as somebody realized that there was something wrong with it, they pulled it down. And what now? If there was no problem with it, why take it back down?
That's a good point. Well, and see, that's the thing, and I actually just got a comment on my Facebook page. This might humor you. I'll tell you what it says. It actually, I put up on the page, I had asked people, I said, today our guest is private investigator Susan Daniels, who uncovered some suspicious evidence that points to Obama having used a fake Social Security number. And then I wrote, And Mario Hall left this comment. He left 3 words. He wrote, "Let Obama be."
Oh.
So
he's obviously a liberal, and can't stand. You know, I keep saying like the old line from the Jack Nicholson movie. You know, you can't stand the truth. You can't take the truth. I mean, people, supporters of Obama, they fall into several groups. The one group, the staunch supporters, cannot admit to themselves that they made a mistake and got conned.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, that is a hard thing. You know, I mean, you know, I mean, I have to admit I voted for George Bush, and I didn't like a lot of what he did, but I'm not going to...
I haven't liked our choices for forever in presidents. If you really want to know, what I always end up doing is voting for the one I dislike the least.
Right. I think a lot of us feel that way, Susan.
Yeah. We didn't vote for somebody. We voted against somebody.
Pretty much. Which is sad, because supposedly America is a free country, which, I mean, I'm not overly convinced that we have as much freedom as we used to.
We don't. We don't, and in the direction the government is going now, we will have less and less freedom because they want us to rely more and more on the government.
That's true. Now, you know, one of the things I wanted to let people know, I actually wanted you to address as well, is when we talked before I recorded last time, I asked you if you knew about Jerome Corsi and how he found this evidence, and you actually told me you're the one that gave that to Jerome Corsi.
Yeah.
So I just wanted everybody to know, because Jerome Corsi's writing all these books about where's the birth certificate.
Yeah. No, I believe, I'm sure there's a part of it, a section in there that mentions me, because he sent me something to proofread for him to make sure there were no errors.
Okay.
Yeah, Jerome Corsi got the Connecticut Social Security information from me. Because he wrote a story in May of last year in WorldNet Daily about it.
Yes, and everybody, just so you know, there's also on the YouTube page, if you're interested in going there, you can go to youtube.com /user/birtherreport.com, or you could just go to birtherreport.com. And you can look there. There's tons of stuff there that suggests there's something not right. And let me just say this to everybody. Look, I know there's controversy, and I know people go, "Oh, well, you hate the president. That's why you're doing this. You need to be praying for the president. That's what the Bible says." And what I'm saying here is, look, it's not bad to question things that seem inconsistent. I mean, recently, as you know, Susan, a few days ago, all of a sudden, Osama bin Laden is dead. But
yeah, for the 8th or 9th time.
Yeah. So
I think that was nothing more than a distraction from the fraudulent birth certificate that they issued last week and immediately got caught at, and all the pressure Donald Trump has been putting on him. I think that was just, Obama's numbers are just going into the tank. They're dropping so rapidly. And I think that this is all, I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe that they killed Osama bin Laden. I think he's been dead for years. And this is just another one of their games. The government, I don't think, is to be trusted at all. I believe nothing the government says anymore.
You know what? Some would say you're a bad American.
Some would say I'm a realistic American.
I know. Well, I would say you're somebody who hasn't been drinking the Kool-Aid. That's what I would say.
No, I definitely have not.
Because you know what? I mean, this is the thing. We Randall, my husband, and I, we talked about this last night on our show. Everybody, if you missed our Active Christian Media show for May 2nd, just go over to blogtalkradio.com/AC Media and look there. We have the show that we did. And one of the things in that program we did was we talked a little bit about some of the news articles that came out, including one from December 26, 2001, that said bin Laden was dead. And this was put out by a Pakistani news agency. But there are other things too, I guess. But the thing is, the thing that I found suspicious about this, Susan, is that when we were watching Sunday night, first of all, everybody, if you don't know, the way the media works, and I learned this from Janet Parshall, who's a seasoned broadcaster, the way the media works is when they want a story to run all week, they drop it on a Monday or Sunday. Okay?
Oh.
They do that so that it can just feed the whole week. It can be like the story of the week. If they don't want something known, what they do is they drop it on a Friday afternoon, and it dies. And Obama has done a lot of things on Friday afternoon that the media didn't want you to know about. So this was dropped intentionally on a Sunday night so that it would be the news for all week. But the other thing is, and this is the part that I found totally, completely suspicious, as I said yesterday, was that at almost midnight Eastern time, there was a ton of people outside the White House. And I actually read on the website, and these were all teenagers in early 20s. These are kids who were little kids when 9/11 happened. They were all apparently texted by the administration and told to show up there because Obama had some type of campaign announcement, which is the MO. This is what happens with liberal people. I mean, the gay activists do it. The Islamic terrorist groups like CARE do it. They rally their people, and they go there, and we're going to show how jubilant you all are to support us. But,
it's all a show. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. So that's the thing. You know, I want you guys to know, look, I don't hate the government. I pray for our president and not just...
Oh, my God. I mean, you're praying for our country. We all want the same thing, but we have been conned.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I think we need to be praying for our churches, and that's something we're praying for as well, because we need more men, true men of the Word of God, to stand up and say, look, church, this is what's really going on. Don't be deceived. And yet, so many are. And it begins with our kids that are being sucked in because they don't know any better. They're young. They don't know any better.
No.
You know, I mean, I'm not old. I'm middle-aged. But, you know, it's almost like when you hit 40, all of a sudden things go, oh, wait a minute. There's some stuff going on here.
Well, something that it just dawned on me the other day, you know, Obama takes his family and goes off to Hawaii for Christmas. All right? What is really interesting is it occurred to me that this is the first time that I can ever remember. They always made a big deal out of the White House at Christmas time. They would hire all these decorators to come in, and they'd have 15 or 17 trees decorated in different rooms, and the place would be absolutely stunningly beautiful. And they would have an hour show on primetime TV showing the White House. It was usually the First Lady that would walk around and show all the decorations and talk about them and everything. There was none of that. I read or was told that his children do not get Christmas presents. I think they went to Hawaii so they didn't have to deal with Christmas in the White House, because I don't think he's a Christian.
Wow, you have a lot of nerve saying that, you know.
Yeah, right.
Well, I was just you know what?
Me and millions of other people.
I know, but see, that's the other thing, and you know, there was a report done recently that 36% of religious people, I guess that would be people who actually go to church, now think that he's Christian, as opposed to a whole bunch more that don't think he is and think he's a Muslim.
No, I mean, he does not conduct himself like a Christian. I mean, he never said a word on Easter about, I mean, it's
right.
One of the holiest days of the year, and never said a word.
Well, he had a prayer thing, and he mentioned the resurrection of Jesus, but he never actually put out an actual president presidential
Right.
proclamation about Easter or Good Friday, but he did Earth Day and the pagan goddess of Gaia.
Oh, and the Muslim
Right.
holidays.
Right, Ramadan. So,
Yeah.
so that's all kind of suspicious, but actually not really, because he's done this for his whole administration.
Right.
Okay, now the other thing too, I know everybody, there's some of you who go, I hate Oprah. Well, just so you know, I like Oprah. I think there's hope for Oprah, because Oprah does read the Bible, but, you know, we're praying that she would actually, the Holy Spirit would, like, quicken her to what's really in the Scripture. She's got all this other New Age garbage that she believes. But Obama just happened to be on Oprah yesterday. And what's interesting is, if you actually could watch the interview, which I had a really hard time, to be honest, because I was just like, oh, I can't watch this, but I had to, because I do this. And what was fascinating about this interview is, okay, first we have all of a sudden the long-form birth certificate, and then we have all of a sudden Osama bin Laden is dead, and then we have Obama on Oprah. Is this a quinky dink or what? The thing,
fun never ends.
Right. Well, the thing though is that is that Michelle was on there and Obama was on there, and admittedly, I thought for a minute, wow, this guy's actually, he kind of comes off as fatherly and kind of caring and kind of nice and everything. He didn't have the typical arrogance that he typically shows when you see him give a speech, but him and his wife actually seemed to be like normal people, and it could be because they were sitting with Oprah, who is kind of sort of normal on some level, but not really on other levels.
No, it's all smoke and mirrors with her too.
Right. So, you know, the thing is, though, how many people believed how many people are believing what they're being shown? And we're just here to say, you know what, look, there's another side. Watch the other hand.
That's right.
To see what's going on.
That's right.
Well, do you have any other opinions or comments you'd like to share about the stuff that you've uncovered?
No, just that I continue to work on it, and as I go forward, as I get more stuff, I'm more than willing to share it with anybody. As you can see, I was happy to send you what I did. I want people to see that I'm not just talking. I can document exactly what I say.
Well, and see, that's the thing, I find it ironic that, especially the Fox News Channel, which, everybody's like, Fox is so conservative. No, they're not.
No, they're not. And they're also almost half owned now by a Saudi prince. And if you don't think that affects what they say on there, I mean, look at Bill O'Reilly last week, what the stunt he pulled by some woman had asked about the Connecticut Social Security number, and he said, well, his father lived for several years in Connecticut and could have easily gotten it for him. That was an outright lie, and in fact, Fox even scrubbed that off of his podcast. When Obama is 77 to 79, when that was supposed to have been issued, his father was back in Kenya. His father never was anywhere near Connecticut. Well, Bill O'Reilly, who pretends that he is, above everybody else, and the no spin zone and all that, he's an outright liar.
Yeah, I've caught him in a number of different things. One thing that he said a couple of years ago that I have not forgotten, because I was directly affected by it, was when Prop 8 was going on and somebody decided to take all the donors who gave to Prop 8 and put our houses on a map and put it up online. Bill O'Reilly claimed that he was going to get to the bottom of it and expose who that person was, and that story was dropped like a hot potato.
Oh, sure.
He never did. But see, that's part of the left's way to intimidate people from actually talking about it, and giving, having people think. That's what I want people to do. I just want you to think, look, you don't have to agree with me, but look at the stinking evidence. You know what I'm saying here?
That's exactly right. don't believe what you're told. The trouble is that people in this country have become so mentally lazy that they don't want to do any work involved in sorting things out themselves. They hear a 30-second news bite on TV, and they think that it must be true because it's on TV. Well, I'm very skeptical of Fox now myself. And then O'Reilly didn't show up for the next 2 days either.
Oh, that's interesting. See, I actually record O'Reilly, but I don't watch it most of the time because I'm too busy doing other things. But when I do watch it, what I do is I scroll through and I look for whatever I'm interested in.
Well, the irony is I never watch him because I can't stomach him. He's so arrogant. But I was just flipping through channels the night that happened, and it came up with a question about Connecticut. And when he said, well, his father lived there for several years, I'm yelling at the TV, you're a liar. You know, because believe me, I have studied the family now for almost 2 years. I know where everybody was all the time. You know, I know how when the father came, when he left, when he came back. He came back. The closest he was back in the United States to 1977. In December of 71, he came back for a visit. He had left in June of 65. He came back for a month or so in December of 71, went back to Kenya, and then died in 1982. He never came back to the United States again.
Very interesting. Now, do you have any opinions about Glenn Beck? Because Glenn Beck has been one of these big mouths who's been saying, oh, you birthers are all conspiracy theorists, and he isn't even looking at the evidence.
Well, I sent him it in August of 2009. I sent to him and Rush Limbaugh the documentation I had accumulated at that point, the first stuff I found. And I said, this guy is lying about his Social Security number, and here's the evidence. And I never heard from either one of them. In fact, I've never heard from, I contacted John Boehner. I contacted Darrell Issa. I contacted my own congressman. I contacted Eric Cantor. All of them. I told them, and I believe I sent documentation to all of them, and never heard from a single one of them. And that's when I realized how much trouble we're really in, because they, immediately after the election, they made all these promises up. They were going to get to the bottom of things, and nobody wants to get to the bottom of anything.
I agree. I agree, because call me a conspiracy theorist. Oh, wait, that's already happened because I'm somebody that thinks and doesn't.
Yeah,
I haven't swallowed
the questioning.
Right.
Question the government. People need to question. They can't take what they read in the newspapers, because mainstream media will not print anything that is negative toward Obama. I don't know why, if it's the people involved. I don't know if they're afraid of being called racist. I can think of a lot worse things than being called a racist. You know, it's got nothing to do with his color or anything else. He's a dishonest man, and he needs to be out of office.
You know what's interesting, too, is just back to the bin Laden thing. On Sunday night, when this news was suddenly breaking, when there was just happened to be all these people out there waiting for this great announcement at almost midnight Eastern time, Greta Van Susteren actually, after Obama made his statement, actually questioned on TV the timing of the bin Laden death as a week prior. And me and my husband, we were flipping through channels, because I always watch the Communist News Network, and then I look over at MSNBC to see who's there spewing their stuff, and then I go to Fox. So those three big networks. And they were all saying different things about that he was killed a week ago, blah, blah, blah. But then Obama said it was that day. And it reminded me of an incident that I heard almost 10 years ago now, out here in LAX, and I'm just repeating this because I said this last night on the show in case you didn't hear it. I just want you to hear it. About almost 10 years ago at LAX, there was an incident at the LL airline ticket counter in that area, where a gunman came in and shot. He was shooting, trying to kill people in that area. And the media, I live in California, the local news actually reported initially that there were 2 shooters. But that story dropped like a lead pipe, and next thing you know, it was only 1 shooter. And so it's these little, quote, inconsistencies that all of a sudden they come up and then they go. And that's what I want people to think. Listen to what people are saying, and then listen to what other people are saying, and you see if they're telling the same story. Even last night, Politico, if you go to Politico.com, there's stories on there where now the White House is backpedaling on the, quote, original story they just told.
Right. It was on Drudge Report this morning.
Okay. Yeah, it was on Politico last night. And so it's like, okay, look, I mean, is this the rise of incompetence in American journalism?
No, it's far more insidious and dangerous than just incompetence. It's not that at all. It's calculated.
So it's calculated to, as somebody asked me on Facebook yesterday, they actually posed the question, have you taken the red pill or the blue pill?
You know, that's what's really annoying to me. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I used to think I was conservative. I don't know what I am anymore. But I know that everybody is lying in the government. The government, I don't trust anything that anybody says now in the government. On YouTube, if people are interested, when Gibbs was still the press secretary for the White House, there was a morning briefing, and on YouTube, if you go to, if you put in the search box Gibbs and CT Social Security number, a videotape will come up where he is asked about the Connecticut Social Security number, and he gets so flustered and starts hemming and hawing and changes the direction, and brings up the birth certificate or something, collects his papers and leaves.
You know what? I just found that audio, so let me play it so people can hear it, and then you can hear it as well. It's only like 1.5 minutes, or not 2 minutes. It looks like 2 minutes. So let me just play that, and so you can hear this, everybody. So you know Susan isn't making this up. Okay, here we go. I'll just play it right now.
And I think I'd leave it mostly at that. Lester. Thank you very much. First sentence. WorldNet Daily's correspondent, Dr. Jerome Corsi, reports that in the U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia, a lawsuit has been filed by investigators in Ohio and Colorado concerning the president's Social Security number. Second sentence. He reports, no, I did not bring up the birth certificate. He reports that investigators Susan Daniels and John Sampson are asking why the president is using a Social Security number reserved for Connecticut applicants. And my question, do you know... Two sentences, Lester. And my question, do you know of any record that the president ever had a mailing address in Connecticut? Lester, I know there are faithful readers of your publication that, despite including you, I don't know that I would necessarily mark myself down as an avid reader or a faithful reader. I continue to be amazed, Lester, that 2 years after putting the president's birth certificate on the internet, without a hospital and without a doctor. Do you think the president was born in the United States? I don't know. I'd love to get the real birth certificate, wouldn't you? I've seen the real birth certificate. I put it on the internet, and I appreciate your forthrightness on the birth answer.
No, it's interesting because, Susan, what you said was right. They actually mentioned you there. He actually didn't answer the question. He put it back to the birth certificate, didn't address the Social Security thing.
No, not at all.
So, and it's interesting too, because now some of the other videos that are coming up as a result are Obama's Social Security number with Jerome Corsi, and then of course Orly Tate, who's one of the ones who's filed all of these different lawsuits regarding the birth certificate and the mother's Social Security number as well.
Yeah, she is actually the person that I contacted. I had the information and didn't know what to do with it, and knew I couldn't go any further with it because I knew I couldn't get any information from Social Security Administration. But because because I'm a paralegal, I knew if I could find a lawsuit that was in progress, and I knew there had been a lot of lawsuits filed, but I knew if there was one in progress, that maybe the attorney under discovery could force this information from Social Security Administration. So I contacted her and submitted an affidavit and documentation to a lawsuit that she had in California. In fact, they just had a hearing yesterday, I believe, on whether that lawsuit should have been allowed to go forward. But she was the first person that I contacted with the information and the documentation.
Yeah, and actually she brought up, and we'll go ahead and we'll close the show out just by sharing this with you, everybody. She was actually on MSNBC, that bastion of liberalness, being interviewed by somebody who literally went crazy, yelling and screaming at her. He was talking to her about the birth certificate. She said, I want to talk to you about this Connecticut Social Security number, and she asked for the camera to be shown to the papers, and the people didn't do it. The host went crazy, cussing her out, and basically, ultimately, cut her off. And so it's interesting. And you know what? Almost in a spiritual sense, it's almost like you're shining the light, and the cockroach is running for heck. They're running out of there because they don't want to be caught, and they know they are caught. And so the problem is, what is our response? What is our response as Christians in particular? Obviously, the Bible says we need to pray for those in authority so that we can live peaceful lives. But let's also not be dumb, everybody. I mean, Christians are known as sheep. The sheep are stupid, as you can tell watching the media. People are sheep. God had a reason for calling us stupid, because we'll go astray without a shepherd. And so I think that's important to consider. So anyway, Susan, I just want to say thank you for coming on my show, and give you the opportunity, if you want to give out your contact info for anybody who's listening, you can do that. Or
I actually don't even have a website.
Okay.
But if people want to find me, I'm really easy to find. All you have to do is go to the Secretary of State site in Ohio and look up under Homeland Security. You look up private investigators, and I am listed there with my address and phone number and everything. I'm not that hard to find. I'm not hiding from anyone.
Okay, very cool. And you have any last thoughts?
No, I think we've covered it, just about everything.
All right, cool. All right, everybody, as promised, here is that info, that conversation with Orly Tate, just for fun. I thought I'd throw that in there. Enjoy that.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there is now no longer, not an inch of room.
Actually, this is Lawrence O'Donnell, just so you know, everybody. That's the host.
For any sane doubt about the time and the place of Barack Obama's birth or his parentage or the fact that he is a natural-born citizen of the United States of America. Are you now ready to apologize for the crusade that you have mounted against those simple truths?
Well, I hope I will have time to respond, which I did not have an opportunity to do before. And I believe that Obama's statement today is nothing but a preemptive strike. We do have a court hearing coming Monday morning, 9 o'clock, in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the reason he is talking about this issue, if I can have a close-up, is because at this hearing and two other hearings, I'm providing documents. Can I have a close-up, please, sir?
Tell us what the document is.
Okay, this is Barack Obama's. Can you do a close-up? I need to show this.
Tell us what the document is.
This is Barack Obama's Selective Service Certificate.
Okay.
And if you look at it...
Yeah, we don't have to see it. Never mind.
It shows...
I want you to talk about the birth certificate that you saw today. I want you to talk... The Selective Service has nothing to do with proving his citizenship.
Absolutely.
I want you to talk about the birth certificate you saw today for the first time in your life. Do you accept the veracity of the birth certificate you saw today for the first time in your life?
Okay, first of all...
Yes or no on the birth certificate. Is that his birth certificate? Do you accept that?
Okay, are you going to let me speak?
No, I am not going to let you talk about anything.
Your program is nothing but Obama.
You have to tell me whether you accept the truth of that birth certificate.
Let me respond.
No. You're not going to do. No, this is not where you come to do your madness.
Felony. Anybody else will be sitting in prison
you're not going to talk
Barack
about your
Obama
nonsense.
is doing.
I want you to talk about the thing you've never seen before in your life. You begged for this. You begged for this document. You got this document. Talk about the document that entered your life today and proved that you were a liar. Talk about that document.
Barack Obama is a liar. He's
was he born in Hawaii? Do you believe he was born in Hawaii according to the truth of that birth certificate?
Stop yelling, behave like
Will you talk about his birth certificate?
Like a human
Will
being.
you talk about his birth
Harvard is not preparing human beings. This is Barack Obama's. So
let me get this straight. You are coming on this show and you're not going to talk about his birth certificate.
Barack Obama is committing Social Security
fraud. Are you going to talk about his birth certificate?
Social Security number that Barack Obama is using.
Get her out of here. Get her off the show. Get out.
It's not that
you're not
number
about the birth
that was
certificate.
assigned to him.
Go home. You're fired. Go play with Donald Trump. Look, she's crazy. I invited a crazy person on the show to see if a crazy person, faced with the thing that the crazy person was trying to get for 2.5 years, could say something responsive, something human to the document that was released today that she's never seen before in her life. And she wants to play with all of her other kids' toys, all of her other crazy documents. I did not expect this to go this way. I thought she was going to address the birth certificate. We were told she was going to address the birth certificate. She's afraid to address the birth certificate. Obviously, great. This just gives us more time for Barney Frank. We'll be right back with Barney Frank.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
So that was Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC, that bastion of great reporting. And what Orly Tates was trying to show was the documents that we were talking about today. And we will be putting those up online so that you can see them in case you haven't already seen them. You know what? Think, discern, you look at the evidence, and you decide what you want to believe. We here at this show, we just want you to have evidence that the mainstream media isn't going to tell you, and, you know, obviously because they have something to hide. And it is ironic, isn't it? Obama would say the only people that have something to hide are those people who have something to hide. Actually, that's not what he said, but you heard what he said. It's getting late, so let me just say this. Thanks for listening to the show. For all information, you can go to activechristianmedia.com. And you can always send us feedback there through the website at our email address, Facebook, or Twitter, and we'd love to hear that. Please tell a friend about the show if you'd like. We're trying to grow our numbers up, and the best way to do that is to have you be our advertising for us, so please do that if you like the show. And we'll talk to you again here next time on the Active Christian Media Show. Now go honor your king.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.